So, Hugh, I have a question. I want to talk about Turkey, but before I do that,
You don't want to talk about Athens?
oh, sure, I do, Athens and Turkey, but I have a question before that. Did you find that your job changed with administrations?
Not really.
You're pretty well constant, regardless, Democrat, Republican. It didn't change from Kennedy to Johnson, didn't change from
Not really.
Eisenhower. Or,
The agency's job, and I want to point this out, it's not written anywhere, but the agency's number one job is to keep this country out of war. That's the main point. Because war is so totally unproductive. And it's pretty frustrating when you provide advice. We are not permitted to propose what should be done. We're only in a position to tell you what the situation is. I can tell you, Clark, you've got a fire in the house. It's in the kitchen. Some idiot left a frying pan on full of grease. It inflamed, it's going up the flue, and you know you never did finish the flue. So your house is in serious peril. I've told you what I am permitted to tell you. I can't tell you, don't throw a quart of gasoline on the fire if you're dumb enough to do that. Like Vietnam.
I was going to mention, was Vietnam a failure of, was it partly a failure of the CIA?
No way.
No?
Okay, one of my fellow officers came back from Nam. This guy's 6'6", built like a truck, tough as nails. He was a buddy of mine in New Delhi, India. And he came back from Nam and is standing in my office, we're chatting, and he's almost in tears. I don't know what we're doing there, Hugh. Those people don't give a damn what kind of government they've got. They just want to grow rice. Okay? That tell you something?
Yeah, it does.
We are not a colonial power. What the hell were we doing there? This is...
Yeah,
we killed a bunch of them and we killed a bunch of ourselves. It's pointless. War is an absolute act of insanity. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, well.
Nah. And the agency is dedicated to keeping us out of that sort of thing by whatever means. This is also unwritten. If you don't know what the other guy is planning to do to you, rest assured he's going to do it. Okay? We didn't know about Pearl Harbor. We knew that something was up. We had no CIA in those days, by the way.
Correct.
CIA wasn't created until 1947. And on the 7th of December of 1941, we didn't even have OSS.
Okay.
We had the rudiments of it.
You were caught with your pants down.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not a situation you want to repeat.
Though the Egyptians did, didn't they?
Yeah, it was crazy. Oh, I'm going to go back to Egypt. I forgot to tell you this one. I had been assigned to the consulate. I'd been there about 3 weeks. And my buddy from my days in New Delhi, Adil Gabr, bless his heart, he was a minister consular for the Egyptian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And he showed up and said, we're going to take you to Abu Simbel and the Valley of the Kings and so on, and Aswan Dams.
Oh, okay.
And I said, I'd really love to do that, but I'm so busy right now. I'm brand new. I will report you, Mr. McMillan, as having insulted an official of the Egyptian Foreign Ministry if you don't accept the invitation.
Okay.
I said, you would, wouldn't you, Ad? He said, I would. So he and Maria and Janice and I made this fantastic trip to the Valley of the Kings, Abu Simbel, the Aswan Dam, the whole schmear. And I've got some fantastic Kodachrome slides. They were removing all of the statuary, which was going to be underwater.
Right, at the Aswan Dam, they were raising everything up to preserve it, right?
Yeah. And I have a photograph, I wish I could dig it up, It's a Kodachrome slide. One of the statues of Ramses, and they're lowering the head. The head weighs, I don't know, maybe 15 tons, and there's a guy lying on the neck. Are you crazy? yeah. Yeah. No, it was just fascinating. And that was my first ride on a, what do they call it? Oh, can't think of the name. The boat that rides up on the air.
Airfoil?
Airfoil, yeah. They used those on the...
That was a new thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
it was brand new at that
Yeah.
time, yeah. It was like riding on an airplane. Same feeling. Just fascinating.
Athens.
Well, we pulled into Athens. The Greeks were starving for tourism, and they couldn't do enough for all of the refugees. They gave us free tours to some of the fantastic historical
Oh,
sites
sure.
throughout wherever we wanted to go. And of course, I have one or two slides.
Somewhere.
Yeah, it was fascinating.
But we had a presence there during the war, didn't we? Didn't we have airfields there?
What war?
Two. I thought we had an air base in Corfu or something. I know.
There was the best airborne operation ever conducted was conducted by the Germans, and they took Cyprus.
Okay.
Okay, we didn't have anybody there.
So there's no infrastructure for you there whatsoever.
The Greeks fought valorously against the Italians when Mussolini decided he's going to invade Greece.
Right.
And the Greeks were beating the Jesus Belizos out of the Italian forces because the Italians didn't want to fight.
No.
But we had nothing in that part of the world except Air Force guys flying over out of Egypt or wherever we could land an airplane. Yeah, that was a whole different bag.
But that was a safe place for you. There was.
You mean when I was there?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because when this is after World War II, that's finished. That's all history.
Right.
And I pulled in there in 1967, and it's beautiful. The Greeks are very bossy. Don't sit that way in my bus, okay? But and the food is wonderful. I'll never forget the first meal we had. Maria took us to a restaurant, and we had the meze, the hors d'oeuvres.
Right.
I thought that was dinner. Then we went into the kitchen.
Oh, is that right?
And you do this in Greece and you do this in Turkey. You go into the kitchen and say, I'll have some of that, I'd like a little of that. The food is just fabulous. Yeah. Miss it.
You were in Turkey?
Mm-hmm. That was my last foreign duty. I was in Ankara. And Lance graduated from the George Catlett Marshall High School, American High School, in Athens, run by the military. And it was named after George Catlett Marshall, who to me is the greatest public servant any country has ever had. What a wonderful person. And as a matter of fact, we named our second son after George Catlett Marshall. Yeah. Turkey was fascinating. We got to travel pretty much all over Turkey. I never got back to Kars, which is where they say the Ark is, in that area.
Oh, yeah, up by Armenia. And,
yeah. But we got up to the Black Sea. We were in Istanbul. I loved the train from Ankara to Istanbul. You could get a nice dinner aboard.
Was that part of the Silk Road, or have I got that right, or something?
Very, very likely.
Yeah. Or
Very,
Orient Express, something like that.
Yeah. And we were in the, one of the most wonderful things that ever happened to us in Athens, our deputy had rented a trimaran.
Yeah.
And something happened, he was unable to use it, so I paid him half what he paid for it. And Lance and Marshall and Janice and I took this trimaran out of Bodrum. And give you an idea of what the Turks are like. My Turkish was pretty good in those days. And I remember a couple of British ladies I think they had tea and cookies or something, and they charged them the earth for it. But when I came up and said, you forgot to give us bread, oh, they're very sorry, and our bill was cut in half because I spoke Turkish.
I see.
And, but roads, I swear to God, as you go down the streets on foot in roads, you can hear the clanking of armor behind. It's not there, but you can.
Oh, it's like
your mind
really?
tells
Really?
you the knights are here.
Really?
Yeah, just fascinating. That was one thing that Mussolini did that made sense. That's the only thing.
What's that?
He brought Rhodes back. Rhodes was a total wreck.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, and he brought it back. And he also made the trains run on time. And they hung him by his heels over.
Yeah, in the square.
Because he was a monster. Yeah.
Huh.
Oh, when I came out of Egypt, the first thing I did was grab Janice and the kids and get on a ferry and go off to a little island called Idra.
Idra?
Yeah. And as we walked in, Mr. McMillan, you're to call your office, like that. They don't even know I'm here. Come on. So I called. They said, you got to get back right now. I said, it's too late. The ferries aren't running. The ferries were running. There was no damn way I had been through a little bit of hell. And anyway, when I got back, I was told that I had to go over to Trieste.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was the last set of eyes to come out of Alexandria, Egypt, and they wanted me to brief the Italian Navy. And the Italian Navy could brief me because they knew a whole lot more about it than I did. But that brought me to Trieste on a Friday, and I had to be there on Monday, so I've got Saturday and Sunday. I'm a bachelor at this thing. And I said, what am I supposed to do for Saturday and Sunday? Have you ever been to Venice? No. Go to Venice. Fell in love with it.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, just loved that city. And it wasn't 40 years later, because I wanted Janice to see Venice. And I remember we were on a train, we were with a tourist group, heading to Venice after we'd traveled all over Italy. And I'm thinking, you nut. It's been 40 years since you've been here. Venice won't be the Venice you remember. Want to bet?
It was, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Every piece of mold was in the same place it was when it was there 40 years before. It's just, what a fascinating place. Yeah. Then, let's see, what was another interesting thing? Berlin. Between my tour in Bombay and New Delhi, there was a piece of time that had to be filled, and so I had to go to Germany and with Jan and the kids.
Roughly what year are we talking?
That would be 64.
Okay.
That'd be 64, but January-ish.
Okay.
And we landed in Frankfurt, and that's where I left Jan and the kids, and I went into Berlin by air, and you lift off out of Frankfurt, which is brightly lit, and you go into absolute blackness. Every now and then you see a little, like a candle somewhere in the distance between Frankfurt and Berlin, because all that territory belonged to the Soviets, and there was just nothing.
What, no infrastructure for lighting, or?
That just I'm not doing anything for you. I hate you. Do you understand? You rotten Germans.
I see. It's just punishment. Like,
Yeah. That was part of it, and establishing a communist regime.
Right.
And you land in Berlin, and the lights are bright, and it's exciting. And I got to get to Gateway Charlie. What was the name of that? Anyway, I got to get on the wall on a platform.
What was? Yeah, I know. I know exactly what you mean because I've been there too.
Yeah. Just fascinating. And the contrast between East and West. You get up on this ramp and you look across the wall into East Germany and you wonder, why in the hell don't you people rebel?
Yeah.
It's just there's nothing. Even the buildings that had been clobbered during World War II are still clobbered. There's no effort to clean up the mess.
Right.
Where West Berlin is dynamic. Yeah. It was quite a lesson.
But that was quite a police state in the East because not only did you have the Germans that were very good at that, the old Gestapo, but also then the Russians. I mean, they made that. They that was under their thumb.
You betcha. Yeah. Yeah. Then out of Frankfurt, we took a choo-choo train and went to Switzerland and spent a week with one of my colleagues who happened to be in Switzerland.
You know where in Switzerland?
Where was he? I think it was Bern.
Okay.
Yeah. And we got to tour around Switzerland. The Swiss are not very friendly.
No, they're not.
They really are cold.
They're not.
Yeah.
Well, Bern that's still mostly German speaking, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, well.
But we went to Geneva. We went all the places. Yeah. But that was just tourism. We were tourists. And then from there we went to Beirut and stayed with another colleague who was there.
I hear that's a beautiful place. No?
It wasn't when we were there. It was pretty grubby. It was called the Paris of the Middle East.
Yeah.
And that's where all the Arabs go to spend their gambling money.
Yeah.
But I was not impressed with Beirut. I understand that since then it's become nice, the parts of it that don't blow up periodically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lawrence of Arabia, where art thou?
Yeah. Huh. Is it so that the CIA does not operate stateside, that they're only foreign?
Yeah. We do have offices here to talk to people like you, to recruit people like me. But the FBI runs internal.
So if I'm showing signs on social media or something that I am interested in terrorism, and that would be the FBI that would track me.
Yeah. But we work closely with the Bureau now. Now that J. Edgar's not around. He was a wacko.
Was he?
Oh. You should read a book called Official and Confidential. It's on J. Edgar. The mafia owned him.
Get out.
And they still have his name on the FBI building in Washington, D.C. Yeah. Now, I got along well with a lot of the FBI people.
What was considered a really great tour if you were in the agency? Where did everyone want to go?
I can't answer that.
I would think Athens would be a real.
Athens is
peach.
nice. Paris is nice.
I would think Paris would be too, yeah.
London. But I found, I told you earlier, what was your favorite country?
Yes, yeah, okay.
They're all fascinating, and they're all different. And if you get out and live in the country. We never stayed on base. Only one time did we stay on a U.S. base, and that's because I was doing a lot of traveling, and Janice was pregnant, and I didn't want her out in the economy while we were in Japan. But that was only for about a year of the 6 that we were there.
Yeah.
The rest of it, we lived in the economy and got acquainted with the people, saw their way of life. Give you an idea of what some people, like when we were on the base, we became acquainted with an Air Force couple living next door to us. And I said, I've got to go down to the Ginza. Jan's going with me. Why don't you come with us and we'll have some lunch downtown. The Ginza? You're not going off the base, are you? Yes, come on. They had been in Japan for 4 years and had never left the base.
Oh, that's
insane.
That's criminal.
Yeah. Some of the places, there's a place called Nikko in Japan. It's a sort of a Shinto shrine. Just unbelievably beautiful.
I would love to go to Japan. That.
My first impression of Japan, I'm having lunch with a couple of my colleagues. It's wonderful. We leave the restaurant, and as we're walking down the sidewalk, we hear the clatter of the gaita, clack, 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 wooden shoes. And our waitress comes up and says, "You forget your money, sir. We left a tip."
Oh, yeah.
You don't tip.
Right. I know that.
Yeah.
And when they travel, they don't tip either. Because I was a tour guide in Germany.
Oh, were you?
And it was beneath them. Not beneath them. It'd be an insult to you as a tour guide.
Yes.
For me to give you money.
Yes.
You know, it's like
different culture.
one of the tour guides would say in Japanese, "It's okay to tip us." Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. Daijobu.
You want to pause it?
We're dead again.
Look at time just flies.
Yeah. Well, I'm having fun reliving so many of my memories.
Well, it's fun having you do it.